It's NFL Week 11, and I'm here with Ron, and we're going to talk Week 10. We're going to talk Week 11. We're going to talk about divisions. We're going to talk about the playoff picture. We're going to talk about coaches. We're going to talk about observations on teams, a whole bunch of stuff. How's it going, Ron?
It's going great. We should talk about one other thing. Cris, I'd like to welcome you back to the NFL this week. Should mention outstanding handicapping by you this past weekend. Saw, some really good straight plays. Feel like I don't know, from afar, you may want to comment on this. You must feel like you're back in the groove or you're hitting a stride right now.
Well, I did hit two 9-team teaser parlays, so something was going right. But yeah, it was good. I gave 16-3 to the clients this week in NFL. I am in good shape in Circa and Super Contest, so kind of excited about that. And I had Miami at a bad number, saved me from being eliminated from the VSiN contest. I can't do anything right in the VSiN Invitational. And I can't seem to do anything right on the Bet US show either. So those are disappointing things. But yeah, it's nice to have a good week, but you're only as good as your next bet. So we got to look back and see what we learned. I see City by the Bay had his best week ever. That's good to hear. And how did your week turn out? Just so-so?
Yeah, a lot of underdogs won or covered last week, and so I always feel bad when I don't have that breakout week. And it was pretty much break-even week, which isn't good. The only reason I won, because everything was pretty even, is that I had the old-fashioned middle plays going. The Carolina New York Giants from the August play to +7. Although admittingly, I should have had Carolina. I shouldn't have just tried to middle the game. San Francisco had a chance to middle that game, but I got the middle in the Minnesota game. We talked about that on Thursday. If not for the middle, I'd break even. And that's a little disappointed in a week like this. Feel like I made a couple of square plays. I think the Rams was a mistake. They played really sloppy last night. I think that was a bad call on my part. No regrets about Dallas. Whenever I can't get to a particular number, it's usually a good thing. But Dallas was obviously not the right side. And feel great about Denver. Feel great about New Orleans. I must have read about 10 or 12 articles about the Saints before I pulled the trigger, just to make sure I wanted to get as many points as I want. I want to get the feeling that the Saints would have kind of a bump after Dennis Allen left the building. And that's exactly what happened. The Saints are a good team. They were just poorly coached.
Well, they kind of got lucky because there was no pressure on Carr, and they really did not. Atlanta kind of shot themselves in the foot. I know I've got a bunch of notes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about lucky getting no pressure on Carr because Atlanta has 9 sacks in 9 or 10 games. So you expect no pressure in Atlanta games.
They had almost 500 yards and they were a turnover machine. And, it was just a very strange game. But going with I had 34 teasers going, and going into the Sunday night game, only had one loss, which was the smallest one. And I use them to set up middles in the Houston. I'm just really resistant to betting, giving points. If I can get around giving points, I will. I throw them in teasers and parlays, and I get them to converge. And so that was a perfect storm with both Houston and Detroit covering both ends. That's very lucrative. And then last night was a partial, so not bad.
Yeah, I
Um,
will say that the only team that I felt comfortable in betting as a large favorite recently is a team that I think was undervalued for 3 or 4 straight weeks, and that's the Chargers. My numbers just didn't equate, so the Chargers were probably the one favorite that I had that I feel comfortable about from last week.
yeah, Dan brings up a good point. You touched on it. Those late game ads, sometimes you don't want the lines to move to where you have to play. And
Yeah,
I think one of the good moves that I realized, I knew when I looked at um, the contest selections for people and the fact that San Francisco could not hit 7, that Tampa Bay was the play. So I threw that in late. I played with Arizona late. I gave out the Jets on the Bet US show and ended up playing Arizona. That's the problem. A lot of things can change from a Wednesday to a Sunday. So, if you're reading the market right, you got to be ready to pivot.
yeah. I ended up with Houston +4, and when a team intercepts the other team 5 times, you're supposed to win the game outright. So Detroit still won there, but that's all right because if that's the worst that Detroit plays, they're going to be a major factor in the NFC. Uh, Houston played their best half of the season, I think, but they didn't play a full 60 minutes. I thought they sat on the ball a little too much at the end of that one. So Houston was a good late play. The Saints were a good late play for me. Didn't have Pittsburgh, probably should have, but I didn't see a lot of threes. There weren't threes on Sunday, were there?
No.
No, it was long gone. I think by the time I said, if I get a three, I'll play Pittsburgh, it wasn't there. And that was just a fun game.
Let's see. Looking back on the week, we had a quarterback throw 5 interceptions and win, and we had a quarterback throw 5 touchdowns and lose with the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, Burrow was playing well, but that defense is a sieve. They can't seem to get Higgins in the lineup, and this Baltimore is. I think we have a note here. Where is it? Where the hell's the game? I believe that they are averaging like some absurd 2 yards per play more than the second best team on
Yeah.
offense. I mean, it's just preposterous. I mean, I don't know what you can do to stop them, but they do have an Achilles heel with that defense. Did you do anything on that game?
No, I probably should have had Cincinnati, but they stayed off that game. Baltimore's rush differential is the best in the NFL, and their sack differential is, if it's not the best, it's one of the top 3 best. The only problem they had, and Harbaugh acknowledged it in an article this morning, he said we have to do something about our pass defense, and that's the only area that's holding them back.
Uh, what did I end up doing on that? I made it a personal play and started some teasers with Baltimore. Uh, I usually don't like to step out of the model for teasers. It's kind of an unwritten rule for me. So I got away with that one. So I'm just doing 5 things here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Baltimore's still a game back from Pittsburgh, too. It's just amazing. Giants and Carolina. I put a small teaser in on. Actually, I put a small money line parlay. Because I like to layer by time, and I got caught speeding trying to use the Giants. The teaser advanced, but the parlay lost. So just pissed off
Mm-hmm.
at myself for getting involved in that game. You didn't do anything with it, did you?
Well, I had the early play from August on the Giants -1. I had Carolina, to try to middle it. Big mistake because my power numbers were so far off that I should have had Carolina as a regular play instead of just going for the middle. So basically, I lost juice on a game that I should have had Carolina on. That line was ridiculous.
Well, I certainly wouldn't have laid the points in the game, but It's just incredulous they couldn't win the game. But you know going in that it's not like when you're not dealing with top caliber teams, you know you can always you have wider variance. So
yeah, my number was 2.5 on the game. That's why I'm kicking myself.
Bills and Colts.
Yeah, well, Flacco, you know what he can do? He can help both teams, and he helped Buffalo a little too much in that game.
Well, Flacco's actually has worse quarterback data and rankings than Richardson now.
Yeah. I would blow up the team, to be honest. For all the Indy fans that we have out there, Russell, Dan, so on, it's time to realize that you're not stopping anybody defensively. They keep talking about quarterback play, and even I just talked about Flacco making mistakes. But the bottom line is Indianapolis doesn't play enough defense to hold other teams down.
I don't know. I wanted to take a look at the Indy. They're not out of it yet. They still have reason to play, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah. Their seventh playoff spot is wide open in the AFC. They're not going to win the division because they're 0-2 against Houston, but they have a legit shot to get that seventh playoff spot, just like Cincinnati and a couple of other teams. It's kind of open for the seventh spot.
No, it's Minnesota. Darnold is really kind of fading.
Wow.
I had some things written down. They were 0-5 in the red zone.
Yeah, they threw some interceptions in the red zone. They basically gave Jacksonville a chance to be competitive in a game that I don't remember. Did Jacksonville have over 150 yards? It was something pretty bad in that particular game. Look at this. Jacksonville has covered the last 2 weeks. They lost 28-23 to Philly and 12-7 to Minnesota. And if you look at the stat sheets, you would have thought that they would have lost each game by 15 to 20 points. Jacksonville's a really bad team right now.
Yeah, they're in trouble. I don't have any notes for them just because they're so bad.
Yeah,
but
they're stay away team.
I'll ask you about Minnesota later, I think. Atlanta and the Saints, we already touched on. Do you have anything to add on that one?
Typical Atlanta New Orleans game. That's what it is every year. I mean, clockwork. Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Atlanta, New Orleans. You know what to do. If the line is 3 or more, you just roll with it.
Cousins, I think I noticed, is third in interceptions. I didn't dissect exactly what he did last week. 500 yards. That was last week's notes. Lots of turnovers. But how did Cousins do the last week or two? He's been off the radar. They must have had a bye the week before, right?
Yeah, he was okay. There was nothing spectacular. 17 points against the Saints is a little low comparative to what they expected. They didn't do anything special offensively.
I don't think I like the Vikings anymore. Denver, Kansas City was exactly what I expected it to be. I felt that the Broncos had a chance to win the game, and they did. A missed field goal at the buzzer. It's a shame that they had to lose the game.
Yeah, I agree completely. You heard me mention it a couple of times last week. Denver didn't match up against Baltimore, but they matched up against Kansas City. So I agree with you. It's exactly the way I expected that game to go.
I want to talk about some climbers and fallers after we get done reviewing last
Okay.
week. San Francisco, Tampa Bay. That was a very, very goofy game. I didn't watch a lot of it, but you had 6.8 yards per play versus 3.7 yards per play. They missed 3 field goals, failed in the red zone, and it goes down to the wire for them to win the game.
Yeah, this is all about Tampa. I mean, if they had Evans and Godwin, we know they missed the last 3 weeks, and Tampa's come up short the last 3 weeks. If they even have one of those guys in the lineup, I think they're 2-1 and maybe even 3-0. I think Tampa with those receivers they're better than Atlanta, even though they went 0-2 against Atlanta. Tampa just won't go away. And for those who thought San Francisco could flip a switch and just get back to that top 5 status, it's going to take a little bit more time for them to get there. But they ran into an opponent that just doesn't quit in Tampa. So very interesting game.
Let me look this one thing up.
Yeah, I should add, since we're talking about special teams, and it was mentioned that Atlanta had special teams issues, San Francisco had special teams issues, Denver missed that field goal. It was a bad week for kickers, that's for sure.
I saw somebody was it Samuel that was just berating Moody after he missed the 3rd field goal?
Yeah. He got in his face and started to say, get it together or whatever. It was uncalled for, but it was the heat of the moment. These guys get very passionate. And how come it's always the wide receivers that are the most passionate?
I don't know, but that's for sure. Getting back to the Tampa Bay, here's what I can't figure. Where do you have Tampa Bay defensively?
Okay, defensively, below average. I don't have a numerical. I haven't slotted them. I have to wait for all 16 teams to be in action at the same time. I would probably say in the 18 to 21 range off the top of my head.
Yeah. Okay. Here's what I can't figure out. They have, over the last 6 weeks, been number 32 defensively in scoring totals, passing defense, opponent passing defense, and the other team's QB rating. I mean, these are all so total points, passing, pass defense, pass yardage, they're 31 and 32.
So they played last 4 games. They played Lamar Jackson, Kirk Cousins, who's extremely accurate, Pat Mahomes, and this past week, Derek Carr, who's accurate as well. So they played some tough quarterbacks over the last 4 to 6 weeks, really. They've had a stretch. Look, I think we'll get into a little bit more, but Tampa Bay's schedule is one of the lightest in the NFL to end the season.
I've got a chart that we can go over when we're done here. The reason I bring up Tampa Bay is I'm trying to figure out how they are not in my bottom 5 dropping teams defensively. They're not even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're not even bottom 6.
Well, if you take into account quarterbacks faced, it makes sense that they're not in the bottom 6 because those opponents are tough. They haven't played. I mentioned, I rattled off those 5 quarterbacks. None of them are first or second or third year quarterbacks in the NFL. They're not playing some of these newcomers.
I'm just talking about for the same 5-week period. Actually, Tampa Bay is middle of the pack the last 5 weeks. How? I mean, it's just strange. I like the way the model filters out. I always say that the important thing a model does is, in my opinion, is filtering out glamour stats, because you can see that long list, and when somebody sees that, they think Tampa is a piece of crap, and they're not. So you can't be over processing glamour stats.
Yeah. I mean, the schedule's going to get easier.
If the Bears, boy, that Bears-Patriots game was pretty darn bad. I think Patriots backers have to start worrying about their season wins under bets. And if the Bears quit, I mean, what did you get out of that game?
One of two games that were probably the most surprising to me is this one, because I thought New England would be on fatigue watch. They come off the overseas trip. They keep playing. They haven't had the new coach by. There was some discontent going on there. Defensively, they were fine. Offensively, I think Drake May gives them a little bit more upside than Brissett, because everybody knows exactly who Brissett is, and Drake May will add a little drama to their offense. But what the Bears did offensively at home, that was a bad loss.
Yeah, that's pretty darn ugly. And
they have not played a divisional game yet. Both Chicago and Pittsburgh have not yet played a divisional game. That will start this week.
That's a good notation. First,
feel free to use it.
Chicago is so bad that they are number 32 offensively and defensively the last 5 weeks. That's really bad.
Well, I enjoy their ride right now. I think they're better defensively than what they've shown, but the offense isn't in sync. And I think we both had questions about the coaching staff. And if they don't make the playoffs, I don't know if the coaching staff survives.
Tennessee and the Chargers, that game played out exactly as I anticipated. I think the Titans did score an extra touchdown that I didn't think that they would get.
Yeah.
They started off the game well, but Chargers ground them down. But I thought that they would cover the 7.5.
Yep, I did too. I put them in the smallest play as far as a regular play, and I put them in 3 parlays. First time my manipulated parlays didn't work to my satisfaction, because I put them with 3 other regular teams and only went 1 and 2 on those. So I lost about almost a half a star there. So I really didn't pick up a lot of ground on that game. Most important stat in this game, 160. You know what 160 means, Chris? I can give you 99 guesses. You won't get it. So let me tell you, that's how many minutes they played in this game. Harbaugh games get over really, really fast. They really have to they don't get enough commercials. And this game was over before some of the games still had 10 to 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Eagles Cowboys.
Disappointment to me.
I don't. Yeah, you know what? I don't know. I guess we didn't talk. I was pretty emphatically supporting that Philadelphia was going to win that game, and they should cover the 7.
Yeah, I had 7.5, and it kind of teetered between a soft 7.5 and a hard 7 almost the whole week, which scared me a little bit. You were talking about reading lines. I thought we would see closer to a 7 at Pick'em for Philadelphia at the end. I thought there would be some correction with the Dallas money that never came. I don't think either one of us had Philly as one of the top 4 teams in the NFL, and probably still may not have them in the top 4, but they've entered at least the fifth range probably now. So I didn't see them completely in this dominant stretch. You probably have them as one of your absolutely best teams in the last 4 or 5 weeks, though. Now,
Oh, they're number one, obviously.
yeah. So they've done a lot of good things right now. So this Philly Washington game on Thursday will be pretty interesting.
Oh, I'm wrong. They are not number one. I made a mistake. Jets Cardinals. You know what? I had a funny sneaking suspicion that Arizona could win that game, but I don't think we would have dreamed that they would have won the game by more than a score.
Yeah,
that was complete and utter domination.
Arizona's a completely different team than what I thought they would be at the beginning of the year or where they were after about 4 weeks. So hats off to Arizona for playing some really strong ball. Give the Jets credit for, I don't know what they are. I guess the whole thing is dysfunctional and Aaron Rodgers is looking his age.
I understand that the Jets stands for just endure the suffering. Is that true?
That the Jet, I don't know. The Jets are a very strange team right now.
And Lions Texans did not. I'll tell you one thing. It was very evident to me that Houston came to play. I was mentioning it the other week where Baltimore was, you could just see the extra effort on every single thing that every single player was doing against, I think that was Denver or Washington, or Tampa Bay, actually. And I felt that way with Houston in that first half. They were just doing the best they possibly could, making the best effort, just doing everything, very well. And they looked pretty darn good that first half. They made the Lions look pedestrian at best. Goff had the 5 picks, but a couple of those, were deflections or strange ones. So I don't think he had a absolutely embarrassing performance by any means.
But we did talk about it. Certainly, I talked about how this would be the toughest test for Goff because of Houston's pass defense. I mean, Houston has a number 1 percentage pass defense in the NFL. It showed all game long that even when Goff was starting to get his rhythm, it was still difficult for him. The biggest issue I have with Houston in the second half is they didn't try to keep doing what they did best offensively. I know Joe Mixon has been an incredible asset to this team, but the way you beat the Lions is not by running Joe Mixon 25 times for 40-some yards. You're going right into the teeth of what Detroit does best. And the way Stroud was hitting his receivers and stuff like that, the way Mitchie was competing and playing really a strong game. Unfortunately, too little too late when they got back to it, and they were in a dogfight after that. But Mixon was not going to be successful against Detroit, and they should have just stuck to their guns.
Well, I was surprised how they were able to cut off the Detroit run game. I mean, Gibbs was having no luck. Yeah. And
it was Houston's best game, best half of their season. And they can play that way, and they'll be a force down the road, but it's not a complete team, but they came to play that game.
They did. It'd be scary to think what it would have been like with Anderson and Collins in the lineup.
Oh my goodness, that would have been something.
What was the What was the attempts and completions for Goff? Do you know?
15 out of 30, I believe, and at one point it was much worse. I think it was 8 out of 21 at some point, and then he got 7 of the last 9. So 15 out of 30, 50%.
Are you giving him credit for the 5 he completed to the other team?
Yeah, then we're good. Then we're 20 out of 30. That works.
A couple side notes on that. Gibbs and Montgomery both have over 700 yards and 8 touchdowns each. Can you name the last time that that's happened with 2 running backs through this point of the season?
Can you give me a?
You were in high school.
It was a long time ago. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. Jim Brown and Mitchell for the Cleveland Browns.
Before my time.
Yeah, 1959.
Wait, yeah, sorry. Wasn't there.
And believe it or not, the Lions actually had a quarterback, Frankie Sinkwich. You remember him when you were growing up?
Never heard of him.
1944, he threw 6 interceptions, and they still beat the Rams 26-14.
1944. Well, I do know it was 1970 since a team or a player threw 5 interceptions and came from more than 2 touchdowns back. So the Lions did something that hadn't been done in 54 years.
One other last comment on that game. The average third down yards to go Houston had was 10.7, which that's pretty darn high.
Yeah, that is high.
Last but not least, the Dolphins and the Rams. I really hated that play all week long until about an hour or two before game time. I actually started to believe that Miami could win that game. I've said it over and over and over again that Rams defense is just not. There's no way that they can. They're too vulnerable on defense to be laying points and expected to do much.
And actually, the defense wasn't the issue. It was
You're right.
5 field goals and no touchdowns. It was a sloppy performance by Stafford and the Rams. Stafford, they got to the red zone, obviously, or at least I guess Cardi tried 3 50-plus yard field goals, made 2 out of 3. But still, the Rams couldn't convert when they got their turnovers. It was a poorly played game, I thought, on both sides of the ball. I mean, for both teams offensively, poorly played.
Yeah, well, neither team was really impressive, but I'm really surprised. I needed the Rams to score that touchdown, and you know what? I just, for the life of me, I don't understand why you kick the field. You either kick it on first down, or why are you kicking it on third down? You've already pissed away. You're 10 yards out. You can afford 5 seconds because you're never going to get a better chance.
Yeah, exactly right. First down or fourth down. That's the only choice.
I mean, everybody loves this McVay guy, but he makes a fair amount of mistakes. And that was just completely mismanaged. I just couldn't believe it. Literally 5 or 6 seconds at the most from the 10-yard line, and you don't take it.
Yeah, I agree.
Goff finished with a higher QB rating than Stroud.
I would find that hard to believe, or the rating system will be off.
Let's see. Rams got back 3 O linemen. Didn't have a chance. Back to the Lion game. I don't know whether anybody saw this, but Penei Sewell had a complete and utter, no play. He let the guy go. I believe that was the play. Goff turned the ball over. But Sewell had, at one point deep in the season, had a perfect protection record. He may still had it for all I know, but whoever that was that got to Goff untouched somehow, Sewell completely dropped the ball. Mm-hmm. So very unusual for him. And then you could see the importance of Decker being gone because Goff was rushed way too much. I mean, They've really hurt them. Decker is more important to that team than people realize.
Well, that's it for last week. Let's move on to the next topic.
Okay, let's do it. Let me highlight. Let me take a look at the rankings here. So Philadelphia is number 2. You got to be able to fill in number 1 and number 3 over the last 5 weeks, can't you?
Philadelphia is number 2. Well, Pittsburgh with Russell Wilson, I'm just going down my sheet on the top of my head. Pittsburgh has certainly performed well the last few weeks. Buffalo's performed well the last few weeks because they've moved up on my charts. Those two.
Buffalo's 5. You're
Where's
forgetting
Pittsburgh?
about Arizona and the Chargers.
Yeah,
And
Chargers for sure. Arizona off my radar because they don't play this week.
I see. And I had no surprise at the bottom: Chicago, Dallas, Seattle, Jacksonville. But here's a huge surprise.
Okay.
Kansas City.
Yeah, well, they don't win by margin that much. We know that Mahomes his TD to interception ratio isn't fantastic. Big help getting Hopkins into the lineup. Their defense is still so well coached that they get in the right situations, but their pass defense is lagging behind their run defense, and it's a pass defense driven league, and that's created some uncertainty. One of several big games this week because they're going to face a pretty good offense in Buffalo.
They've been outgained 3 out of the last 4 games. 0-3 in the red zone, I believe. They get Pacheco off IR, but that doesn't necessarily mean he plays this week.
Yeah, he may wait an extra week. We'll see. But it's a big difference because he runs angry. That's the way I've called him. He runs angry, and it's a big loss. You know, we've talked about Hunt and how he's contributing to the offense. But if I remember correctly, Hunt is under 4 yards per carry, which is not that good in the NFL. The NFL, you got to run 4.3 yards per carry. 4 yards per carry is not good enough.
Now, here's an oddity. I thought that it was odd that the Rams are the 5th worst offensively. You know, we always have been thinking, you know, that that's where their strength is. But that's another explanation is if their defense already sucks and they're running at a bottom 5 offense all of a sudden over 5 games, that's a hard team to get behind.
Yeah, I expect improvement, Chris, in this area because Puka and Kupp are getting healthy. They're going to be together now, hopefully the rest of the time. They still don't have their tight end Higbee back. As mentioned in the chat, 2 or 3 offensive linemen were back this week, but they do have to get their footing, and more importantly, they have to get their chemistry back together. So I expect some improvement from the Rams moving forward. If it's this week, I don't know because it's a short week for them. But after that, I expect the Rams to improve offensively.
It's not a short week for the Rams.
Well, it is since they played on Monday.
Oh, yeah, duh, okay. KC is ranked bottom 5 in takeaways, Birdie points out, or City by the Bay points out.
Yeah, -6 turnover ratio is what I have them.
My model doesn't have equal footing for defense and special teams. What percentage of a grade on a team do you have offense, defense, special teams?
I don't really break it down that way because, for example, I treat how you defend the pass via the pass rush and the passes allowed much more than I treat how you defend the rush. So I have ebbs and flows. There's parts of the defense and parts of the offense that I equate higher than other parts of the defense and offense. And special teams would probably be, again, what I look for in special teams is the bottom 5 teams in terms of punt coverage, kick coverage, kickoffs and stuff, and the top 5 teams. If you're in the middle of a special teams ranking, you're not going to get that much attention from me.
Okay, so what are the top special teams and the bottom?
I don't have that, unfortunately, off the top of my head. So I have to save that. Sorry.
I don't know what you do with your time, Ron.
Yeah, what do I do?
So Washington and Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's a good one, and it has divisional implications, seeding implications. Yeah, it's great to see Washington relevant again, and maybe their first coaching mistake of the year this past week when they played Pittsburgh. They made a couple of curious late decisions, and obviously the jumping off sides was very unexpected, shall we say.
They're both 2-0 in the division. Washington's 5-1 in conference. Philadelphia 4-2. I thought that somebody brought it up earlier. Philadelphia is getting, some amazing stat propping up versus some questionable teams, and that's my concern within the model. But when I look at overall strength of victory wins, they both have an identical 33%. So they're both equally getting wins against bad teams. Washington slightly stronger schedule, but Philadelphia at 0.368 average for their strength of schedule, I think. Who do you any thoughts on this game? You probably take the +3.5 divisional mode, right?
Not necessarily. I actually think the line is a drop short. This has been a pretty good series for the visitors. So there are some indicators that point in Washington's direction. The stat sheets and the historical stuff, stats, they don't show a real edge in this particular game. The one thing that I'm surprised at, if you talked to me at the beginning of the year, what I would have expected in this game, of course, nobody would have expected Washington to have this record, but new coaches with late buys usually have issues. And you have to give Washington a lot of credit. They haven't had a full week off, and they're playing at a very high level. And that was a great game, an entertaining game against Pittsburgh. So they got to put it together one more week on a short week without any rest, without any adjustments made by the coaching staff. So I think they're kind of the exception to the rule. And right now, I would have to do more research, but I don't think I would play Philly in this game. But I don't know that I really want to play Washington either.
That was Daniel's worst game. Was that him related or Pittsburgh related?
Probably more Pittsburgh related. They had a really good game plan. Tomlin talked all week about what he had to do against a quarterback of Daniel's caliber and how to assess that. And Washington still put up 27 points. So again, very impressed with Washington's entire organization and culture.
Yeah, no kidding. That's going to be a good Thursday night game again. Packers, Bears, that's a pretty darn difficult game to want to wager on. I can't imagine you getting involved in the game.
This is a game at the beginning of the year. I probably said it 3 or 4 times that if Chicago wants to be relevant, they have to figure out how to beat Green Bay, because they have not been able to beat Green Bay, especially at home. They just can't get over the hump against Green Bay. And I think they would have felt really good even at 5-5, if they would have just found a way to win at New England. But that performance was just crazy. Their whole season, and I believe their coaching staff, everything about this organization is on the line this week against Green Bay.
Just the way you phrased that made me kind of chuckle a little bit.
Uh-oh.
I don't think the Bears believe that. I mean, the rivalry might incentivize them, but season on the line, I don't think so. I think they know their season's shot.
They're 2-9 against the spread and straight up as a home dog the last 11 in the series. And Green Bay has been pretty, especially with Rodgers there. They were, they said we owned them and stuff like that. The Bears just, they want to win against Green Bay in the worst way. So that whole organization knows what's on the line. The problem is Williams and the team. How good are they? Because they really haven't shown a thing right now. And now Green Bay has had a week off.
But Brown Saints. We got Chubb back in the lineup. Jameis revenge going back to New Orleans. Carr had his vacation last week against the Atlanta defensive line.
That's, two great points because Cleveland has 3 times as many sacks as does Atlanta, 27-9. So Carr did have a vacation. And you mentioned Chubb. Very important point about Chubb because he missed, a whole year or something like that, a whole bunch of time, comes back, plays 2 games, and then he gets rest. So maybe we see the old Chubb or parts of the old Chubb in this game. It's a very confusing game for me to handicap, but all the points you make are very interesting.
What do you expect about you expect Cleveland to show up?
I do expect Cleveland to show up in this game. I think they're coached well enough to do that. You never know what Jameis brings to the table, but he could be pretty effective against this defense if he happens to have one of his better games as opposed to that kind of game where he throws it to the other team. I expect Cleveland to show up.
Oh, I think I'm going to place a bet here on this game.
Live action.
I am going to take. Where the hell is it? I'm going to take the last 44 that I see.
Going to go over?
Yeah.
Makes some sense.
Yeah. I don't see. I think I took the last 44. Oh, no. Pinnacle still has a 44. No, I don't see any other 44s. So.
All right. Sorry. Keep talking. I'm going to look on my end.
Yep.
Let's see.
All right.
Now I see a 44 minus 114.
Where?
Bet 105. The Heritage offshoot.
Okay. Oh boy, the Rams Patriots. That's a pretty interesting game.
Yeah. So, question for you, Chris. How do you think the Rams? We talked about it's a short week, but the way they lost, and Stafford's post-game interview says he can't wait to get back, and he's glad to be playing another game, quicker to get this taste out of their mouth. What do you think the Rams respond? How do you think they respond after this very sloppy game?
I think that they will respond as well as they can. I think that I think what you see is what you get with this team.
Where did you set the line?
I show value in New England.
So do I. I was surprised the line came out around 5.
Yeah. I was wondering if in Dreamland whether it would go up to 6, but I doubt it.
Yeah. I set it at 3.5, to be honest.
Yeah. This is a doozy. Did you know that the Steelers are playing their first divisional game of the season, Ron?
I may have mentioned that to you. Yeah, the schedule heats up now, and these games are crazy. I mean, you can flip a coin as far as who's going to win, no matter what their records. Pittsburgh and Baltimore. It's the best to me. It's the best rivalry in the NFL going right now. Longest rivalry as far as ebbs and flows of the teams, because these teams always seem to be good.
What do you make of Tomlin going for the fake punt from like their own end zone?
Yeah, I don't mind fake punts, but fake punts early in the game from that far away, shocking to me.
I think I brought it up on 2 previous shows that there's something different about Tomlin this year. Just another example.
Yeah, I mean, he brought in the 2 quarterbacks to change things around. They've been more aggressive in free agency and before the trade deadline. I think they're trying to open some things up and be a little more creative. So, and they're doing fine. It's a brutal stretch when you have 6 divisional games, and I think who else do they have? They have Philadelphia, Kansas City, and 6 divisional games. I mean, we still have a very brutal schedule waiting ahead of them, but they're a better team too. And again, TJ Watt has stayed healthy.
I don't want to talk about the Raiders Dolphins, do you?
Nope.
I don't want to talk about Jacksonville Detroit, do you?
Nope.
I think I mentioned my feelings on Minnesota. I think that they're declining. I still think that they're a decent team. Where the hell did I have them? I don't know. They still rank okay, though. I don't know about these Titans. Don't they get somebody back? No, that's Thielen is Carolina.
Unless they get running back Henry back from Baltimore, I don't think it's going to happen. This is a time of year. This is kind of an interesting thought. It's a time of the year when you wonder how much home field advantage is worth when you've got a Tennessee team obviously out of the playoffs, 0-3-1 against the spread, 1-3 at home this year straight up. Do you even give them a full 1.5? I don't give them a full 1.5. I know Minnesota can be its own worst enemy, but I really don't want any part of Tennessee either.
Yeah, I show value on Minnesota, but I look at it just the same as last week. Similar situation.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'll end up doing in that game. Seattle off the bye, Metcalf back versus this San Francisco's got problems. I mean, there's just something. There's something off, other than they've been decimated by injuries. Would you feel that way at all?
Yeah, they cannot flip the switch right now. They're not quite there yet. They have to play better against the run, which is one of their staples. They have to get more. They haven't really incorporated Deebo Samuel into their offense without Ayuk, and they needed to see more of him. George Kittle is amazing. That catch he made in the game, I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
He continues to make amazing plays. Everybody's saying, oh, his body is beat up and whatever. And the way he plays the game, he beats his own body up. But what an asset to a team, a guy like that who just does everything for the team. See, the problem with Seattle, rested or not rested, is they ride on Geno Smith, and he's kind of unpredictable as well.
It looks like Noah's doing your job for you. He says special teams in San Francisco are a disaster.
Yeah. Oh, not a lot of confidence in a guy who not only has to try 6 field goals because San Francisco is not getting it done, turning field goal attempts, not touchdowns, but also coming off his injury, Moody. There's something psychological. Kickers have psychological stuff going on all the time. And there's no question Moody is not in, his mechanics are not right.
Yeah,
that's a good point, Noah.
Check the status on Kittle, by the way. I know I saw something that he's dinged up.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely dinged up. He will practice not very much this week at all, and then he'll be in the lineup.
This is an odd game. It's been one-way betting action on Denver. When I looked at it, I thought that the line was like a gift, but the model doesn't, say anything's, too out of hand. So, what are your feelings on that game?
Yeah, it's probably going to be a stay away game. You got Denver coming off Kansas City, and obviously the way they lost to Kansas City, they have to put that behind them. Cincinnati, Denver, Indianapolis, these are all teams that are still somewhat in that seventh, trying that seventh playoff spot. And that was a loss that Denver might come back to haunt them, that Kansas City Denver loss. And if they're thinking about that too much this week, Atlanta, we know Cousins is accurate. It's a kind of a dangerous game for Denver, but at the same time, you've got that clean pocket again for Bo Nix.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. What's he going to be able to do with that clean pocket?
Well, he's still not going to be able to go over the top because that's not Denver's offense, but I look for a stat line of maybe like 23 out of 30 for 220 yards. So you're going to see less than 10 yards per completion. You're going to see a lot of move the chains completions. You're going to see the Denver running backs get more involved. I think Denver can do some things with time of possession in this game. So it's going to be up to their defense. This is all about Denver's pass rush. If Denver gets there and gets to Cousins, Denver wins. If Denver doesn't get to Cousins, I think Cousins does damage against the secondary.
Denver's been dropping on defense, unsurprisingly.
Yeah. They allow 2 out of every 3 completions, but at the same time, they're one of the leaders in defensive sacks. So you can't have it both ways. Either they get there or they don't get there. That's what I think. I think this game hinges completely on Denver's pass rush.
We talked a bunch about Kansas City already. We've got a bunch of injured players on Buffalo. Allen didn't really do well, but who's he supposed to throw the ball to?
Yeah, we knew that. So interesting stat is that everybody talks about how Buffalo really wants to pay back Kansas City because they keep losing in the playoffs. That 13-second stuff a couple years ago, I think they lost to them last year. I mean, Buffalo cannot beat Kansas City in the playoffs. Buffalo's won, I believe, 3 in a row in the regular season, including last year against Kansas City. So Buffalo's actually played. I mean, it's a tale of regular season versus postseason, but Buffalo, people forget that Buffalo has beaten Kansas City.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to do in that game.
Yeah.
There's no problem. I don't know. More to evaluate. Cincinnati and the Chargers, an awfully interesting Sunday night game.
Yeah, they flexed it to Sunday night, which is really good. I'm glad that they did that, even though I won't be around, unfortunately, to see that game. But good contrasting styles, because Joe Burrow looks really sharp. You mentioned it. And he goes against a team that is a little vulnerable against the pass. By the same token, you know how the Chargers like to control physically the line of scrimmage in an offensive manner. They may control that line of scrimmage in the run game against Cincinnati. So contrasting styles in this game.
Yeah, the brothers should be having powwows because they've each played. They're each playing the teams that the other one is playing. So there should be some insight to be shared there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Interesting thing on the Chiefs. If the Chiefs lose, then Pittsburgh will control their own destiny to the number 1 seed. Did you realize that, Ron?
Well, it's too early to talk about number 1 seeds, I think, in the AFC.
You have 9 teams below 500. You know, one of the things with the AFC is you've got 9 teams below 500. 7 of those teams are 3-7 or worse. So we're gonna have a lot of teams completely with nothing to play for a lot earlier than a typical season.
Yeah, it's an interesting year because we know who the top teams are and we know who the bottom teams are.
Do you guys put any weight on the whole East time zone team on West Coast late game? Miami did okay last night. What about you, Ron?
So the East Coast going to the late game. No, a little bit in college I would do that, but not in the NFL. 19 and 20-year-olds playing 3 hours difference, and they have to play at Cal and at Stanford and at these with the new ACC configuration. That might be a little trying for the East Coast teams, but at the professional level, no.
Oh, that's an interesting chart. Anything else on that game? Did I miss your opinion?
No opinion at this time. Still formulating.
Herbert's the number 4 graded quarterback for the season overall.
We know exactly what Harbaugh's doing, and he's doing it just the way I thought he would do. Again, I point back to the draft that people thought was decent. I thought it was spectacular because the Chargers drafted exactly the way Harbaugh wanted to build his team, and it's showing.
So this is the first time they face a real quarterback, the Chargers do.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating game. We now have alignment with the Chargers and their power rating, at least pretty close to alignment, whereas the last 4 weeks I've been much higher on the Chargers than what the prevailing line has been.
What do you make the line on this game?
I made this line Chargers 2. Because it became Sunday night. Sunday afternoon, I might have changed it a little bit. I think, we talk about what's home field advantage for teams like the Chargers. It depends on who their opponent is. If Pittsburgh's there, then Pittsburgh's going to have a home field at LA. But Cincinnati doesn't travel like Pittsburgh does.
That's true. Well, this really, and this flex out is really annoying because the Colts Jets game is at the bottom of the rotation.
Yeah.
And some of the books you open up, it's toward the top of the card, and then other books it's in rotation. And I just like things in time order. It's very annoying. But
Well, NCAA is famous for messing that up. I never know what's going on. I have to have a special chart for exactly when the game is.
you can't have the Jets justified at 4, can you?
No, I set at 3. And I set at 3 primarily because the matchup indicators for Indianapolis just annoys me, the fact that they never change how they play the game. I think they need to do total house cleaning in Indianapolis. This game is one I would really prefer to ignore, except for the fact that the Jets, they're so uninspiring, the Jets. Yeah, cancel the game.
I mean, I'll ask you oh no, I lost this chart I wanted to.
I think a forfeit in the NFL is 2-0, so the dog would cover.
How did I do this? Tell us everything you know about the Texans Cowboys while I try to recover this chart.
I could tell you this. I would probably try to start Trey Lance and find out what he's about. I know they gave him some playing time. He threw an interception. It may be unfair to Cooper Rush. Maybe Jerry Jones still thinks that Dallas is going to make the playoffs. I think Dallas does make the playoffs if they expand the playoff field to 30 teams. But if they don't expand the playoff field to 30 teams, I think it's Jerry Jones being delusional again. We need to see what Trey Lance is about. What I can tell you about Houston is they're going to be a little bit disappointed from that Detroit performance, but I think it's a real perk for Houston that they get an extra day, that they can let this sink in, another standalone game. They play 3 straight standalone games. So this is the second of 3. And I think Houston wants to make a better showing. It's hard for me to like Dallas in this game. The line is already baked toward nobody wanting to take Dallas. It's going to be one of those probably no game for me. I don't know how you feel about the line, but Dallas is just very dysfunctional right now.
I mean, they were able to do nothing offensively. I mean, it's hard to believe the Cowboys stand much of a chance in the game.
Yeah, if the Texans play as inspired as they played against Detroit in the first half, I don't know what Dallas is going to do. Basically, Dallas runs the ball so few times because they made no investment in their running game that they're so one-dimensional, and every team in the NFL knows it.
The only other thing I wanted to add is they're on a bye, but they haven't allowed a touchdown in 2 weeks. It's just bizarre.
Huh. Interesting.
What do you have Kansas City ranked overall?
Let's see. Where do I have Philly now? 30.5. Kansas City
And
tied
San
4th.
What
Philly
about San
is caught
Francisco?
them. Still circled. Still not in my top 5. Still need to see them get in sync. So in the kind of the 6 to 10 range, probably.
I can't get them in the top 10 right now.
Yeah. I have like 4 teams circled, so I need to see more. I still need to evaluate Jacksonville without Trevor Lawrence. They're in the bottom 3 right now. I still need to evaluate Miami because there are some questions for me there. Dallas, I need to put an actual number on the difference between Dak Prescott and the others, but they're in the bottom 3 to 5 right now. I mean, Dallas and Jacksonville have just plummeted. And I guess of the teams playing this week, those are the ones in circles. San Francisco's in circle.
2 more comments. Somebody shared the results of this season, home and away, and the home field advantage is 0.7 of 1 point so far, which is not unexpected. Agreed?
Yeah, it's a movable target all the time because weather then changes, and a lot of it is driven by the NFL schedule makers, short weeks, bye weeks, that kind of stuff.
This touches remotely on what we talked about previously, and that is and I heard it in mainstream media too within the last week, is the widening division between the top echelon coaches and the bottom echelon coaches.
Yeah.
I saw a chart here where if you simply just evaluate who's got the better coach or design teams, so to speak. I don't know what was meant by that, but they were 13-1 this past week, and they're 117-35 on the season for a 77% win percentage.
Some of that will be subjective based on a person's evaluation of a coach.
Sure.
And if you have the 13th best coach versus the 19th best coach, is that really a difference? But besides that, we both talked about it before the mainstream media talked about it, is that bad coaches, you have to subtract something for them, and good coaches, again, it gets back to the way I look at special teams. I care who's the top 5 and I care who's the bottom 5.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would have said. The rest of them are noise.
Right.
You wanted to take a look at, let's see here.
Yeah, I don't know how much time we want to devote to this now versus Thursday, but there's some divisional stuff that's very interesting. Dynamic versus Philly, Washington, for example. Look at their remaining schedules.
Hold on, I'm trying to. There we go. I'm sorry, what did you ask?
Remaining schedules, Philadelphia and Washington.
Oh, I don't have that chart. Let's see. Are you looking at this?
We could tease people and say we'll do it for Thursday's show.
I have this list of the divisions and the strength of schedules that they've been playing, and
okay.
I don't know whether you wanted to make any comments or look at anything specifically.
Well, let's look at strength of. Do you have strength of schedule remaining?
I don't.
Okay.
And it doesn't look like it.
Okay. So maybe we table it a little, but there are some interesting dynamics in terms of what's left for each of these teams. Baltimore, for example, is minus 200 to win that division, and Pittsburgh is anywhere from plus 150 to plus 220. If you want to arb it, you could get a minus 200 on Baltimore and a plus 220 on Pittsburgh. You lose if Cincinnati beats them both out, but
that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So you can look at it that way. And I have an observation about their remaining schedules. Washington is anywhere from plus 150 to plus 195 to win the division. Philly, the best number you can get is minus 210 to win the division. That's an interesting dynamic, and it's only a 2-team race there as well.
Have they played? This is their first meeting, right?
Pittsburgh and Baltimore?
No, Philadelphia.
Or Washington and Philly? Yeah, first meeting. So 3 tough other games for Philly. I think they play at the Chargers, at Baltimore, at somebody else. I can't read my writing. At the Rams, maybe. Washington, of course, based on their last year's record, has an easier schedule. They have at Tennessee and at New Orleans. So Washington has the easier schedule down the road.
Well, they got to win this game, though.
Well, they will play again, and they will play at, home to Washington. My argument is if Washington and Philly split this season, it's not a done deal that Philly wins the division.
I don't think it's a done deal. Atlanta wins that division.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, too. You bring that up. Atlanta is 2-0 against Tampa.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, so Tampa's the better team, but Tampa has to finish one game ahead against Atlanta. But if you look at Tampa's schedule, I would argue it's one of the 3 easiest remaining schedules in the NFL.
Well, look at they've got by far the most difficult schedule. Their average opponent 6.58.
Yeah, if you look at what's left for them, it's something that we'll revisit maybe on Thursday in greater detail. But Tampa has a path if Atlanta continues to not pressure teams defensively. And then the third division I would bring up is the one that's being noted right now in the chat that you just highlighted. The whole dynamic between San Francisco and Arizona, which is really too close to call, in my opinion. And then the Rams, you could get plus 900. You would never have gotten plus 900 if they would have won this game yesterday. But now they have an uphill climb, but it's not insurmountable if you believe that Arizona is a little bit better. And where do you have Arizona's power rating?
Hold on a moment. I'm dialing up Circa to check their divisional odds here.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't look at that. I don't have Arizona on my list this week because they're not playing.
Wow,
Arizona's going up. Arizona's going up.
They're the favorite.
Yeah. But there are some markets where San Francisco is practically dead even with them. FanDuel has Arizona the favorite. I mean, FanDuel has San Francisco the favorite, Arizona plus 140.
Who? FanDuel has Arizona plus 140?
That's correct. So does Bovada. So it's a fascinating race to me. So a lot of toss-up games in San Francisco's final 8.
Let's see here. Yeah, they do.
Kind of a homework assignment, but some of these divisional odds are getting really interesting.
Well, let's see if they'll give me a bet on Arizona.
Where does Circa have them at?
Even.
Oh, just even?
Yeah.
So it's not as good as the others, if you like Arizona.
Yeah, they gave it to me. Let's see if they'll move it. Oh. You can have a piece of it. We can discuss afterward if you like it.
All right, I will do a deeper dive.
Well, you'll have 5 minutes to make up your mind.
I know. I'll have 5 minutes after the show to do my deeper dive. Then you have to answer this question right now. Looking at the Rams schedule, do you give them any chance to disrupt the top 2?
No. I mean, I don't know who they play, but they're not good enough.
Okay.
I mean, they certainly have a chance because, of injuries. I mean, if Purdy goes out or Murray goes out, that changes the whole complexion.
They already have a win against San Francisco. I'm trying to see who won the Rams-Arizona game because I'm blanking out on it.
Falcons minus 900 to win their division. I guess they are a lock for it. Lions are minus 430. Eagles minus 200. Commanders plus 167. What did you say you saw?
FanDuel Washington plus 195. Now, the other question is, let's say Philly beats Washington this week. Then you're going to get 3.5 to 1 on Washington after that.
Yeah, that's worth considering. I'm trying to think here. Yeah. Steelers plus 170, Ravens minus 200.
Yeah. And you can get 220 on the Steelers. But I've got to tell you, though, I think the Baltimore minus 200 is legit, though.
You like that?
Because Pittsburgh still has to play out of conference. They have to play Kansas City, and I believe they have to play Philadelphia, a team they haven't beaten at Philly since 1965.
So you've got a choice of playing Baltimore this week minus 175, or you play Baltimore to win the division minus 200. That looks like a pretty easy choice.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't play Baltimore this week.
No.
Because that's a flip a coin game. In fact, if Pittsburgh wins the game and Pittsburgh becomes the divisional favorite, it's kind of like that Philly game. I would probably take Washington if they lost this week to win the division at 3.5 to 1, and then Baltimore will become, what would they become? Maybe like minus 120 if they lose to Pittsburgh.
Well, if you like Pittsburgh this week, you bet them to win the division because you're only
right.
You're getting one.
Oh, I agree with that, but I don't like them to win the division. You're only doing it.
You'll be able to buy out of it.
Yeah. I was just going to say that because that makes sense. If you're going to buy high on Pittsburgh to win the division, that's now, and then you could have plus 220 on Pittsburgh, and then you could have minus 120 on Baltimore.
Yeah, I wish I had the schedule handy, but I'm a moron. I don't. Here are the playoff probabilities here.
Yeah, so just playoffs alone.
Yeah. So the Broncos at 5-5 have a 52% chance. That's how bad the AFC is.
And they have a fourth place schedule still. So they were obviously, I mean, we might have had the 7 teams locked up. If Denver would have beaten Kansas City, we might have had the 7 teams make the playoffs right there and no one else would have been in it.
Yeah, you're right. That's a shame we don't get to see that.
Then we'd have 9 teams doing nothing in the AFC.
Here's the NFC. The lowest
NFC,
72%.
That's got to be more convoluted in this week.
Yeah. The Cardinals, 59%.
That's a hard one. I wouldn't give them 59%.
Really?
No, because you've got 3 teams in the Packers and the Vikings.
Yeah, but you're talking about them being tied with Washington and just a game back of Green Bay, and with easier schedule.
Yeah. I guess I haven't come around completely to Arizona being consistent week in and week out. And with the bye week, I don't have to think about them for a week. But maybe it's the real deal. Their win total is 9.5 for the year.
Well, they're not going to get a win this week.
They may tie.
I don't know how to work this stupid thing.
I do like, from an entertainment standpoint, the slate of games this week. Because you have Washington, Philly, Green Bay, Chicago is somewhat entertaining. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, always entertaining. Seattle, San Francisco, maybe, and Kansas City, Buffalo, and Cincy, and the Chargers. I think we have 6 teams that are really entertaining and going to be fun and competitive.
I think you're showing your West Coast prejudice because
the
Seahawks 49ers is I'm more interested to watch the Rams Patriots than that.
Yeah, it's possible, but I just think because they're off a bye and the new coach finally gets a reset opportunity, that's an intriguing game. If you're going to beat San Francisco, if you're going to be competitive against San Francisco, you better do it now while San Francisco is still finding its rhythm. That's why I included that. It would have been the 6 out of 6, but that's why I included it.
What's the over-under on personal fouls, Baltimore, Pittsburgh?
Ooh, good one. 5.5. Let's make it high.
What else is on your mind? Anything else? I think I'm out of bullets.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground and we've gone on in this one. Maybe we'll revisit some divisions and win totals offline or online. Thursday should be fascinating to see what we come up with on Thursday, but good slate of games. Congratulations again, Cris, on last week. Let's run it back and do it again.
Yeah, I'm going to get booted from the VEASAN contest after this week. I have to make up 2 games somehow to stay in it. So it's going to take an act of God to help me this week.
Okay, well, it'll keep you level-headed, and then you'll do fine on the other ones.
Okie dokie. I am waiting for my Amazon deliveries. I couldn't sleep, and I went nuts on ordering a bunch of crap I need, but I don't need, sort of stuff.
Thanks to everybody who contributed, and we'll see you again on Thursday and next Tuesday.
Cheers.